Hello, I'm Alma Angeles, and you're watching Eagle News International.
And I'm CJ Hero. Welcome to the program. On tonight's headlines.
A defiant Donald Trump rejects blame for a deadly assault on Congress by his supporters on the eve of an all but certain historic second impeachment.
Japan expanded a coronavirus state of emergency to 7 more regions, including Osaka and Kyoto, and tightened border restrictions as infections surge nationwide.
General Motors joins the race for flying cars, unveiling its concept for an autonomous air taxi at the 2021 Consumer Electronics Show.
And footage from Sea Life Sydney Aquarium in Australia shows an adult male seahorses giving birth to dozens of babies as part of the aquarium's white seahorse breeding program aimed to repopulating the endangered ocean animal.
White seahorses.
First, President Trump is projecting defiance as he faces his greatest political peril yet, an unprecedented second impeachment. He denied any responsibility for the riot that engulfed the halls of the Congress last week. The president emerged in public for the first time since his supporters stormed the Capitol, talks of involuntary removal or his second impeachment. Take a look.
As far as this is concerned, we want no violence, never violence. We want absolutely no violence. And on the impeachment, it's really a continuation of the greatest witch hunt in the history of politics. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. This impeachment is causing tremendous anger. And you're doing it, and it's really a terrible thing that they're doing. For Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer to continue on this path, I think it's causing tremendous danger to our country.
Now, at his rally last Wednesday, the president urged the crowd to march to the Capitol. He's since been denounced by inciting the mob. But today he insisted that his words were, quote, totally appropriate, and that brought new condemnation from the top Democrat and incoming Majority Leader, Senator Chuck Schumer.
What President Trump said this morning, showing how despicable a president he is. He blamed the violence that he helped cause on others. He blamed the divisiveness that he regularly causes on others. He blamed so much on others. Trump causes the anger. He causes the divisiveness. He foments the violence and blames others for it. That is despicable. The technique Trump is using is used by the worst dictators the globe has ever seen. Donald Trump should not hold office one day longer. The bottom line is that Leader McConnell has the ability to call us back into session, and we can then move to convict Donald Trump, try on the impeachment trial, and try him.
Now, Vice President Mike Pence gave the besieged president a lifeline by saying he wouldn't invoke the 25th Amendment that allows him and the cabinet to strip a sitting president of his powers. I do not believe that such a course of action is in the best interest of our nation, Pence wrote in a letter to House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The House of Representatives delivered a stinging rebuke to Trump anyway, voting almost entirely along party lines to call on the vice president to take action and remove the president. Again, let's listen in.
The president's actions demonstrate his absolute inability to discharge the most basic and fundamental powers and duties of his office. Therefore, the president must be removed from office immediately. This is a decision we make with the utmost solemnity and prayerfulness which this crisis requires. Removal of the president is an unprecedented action, but it is required because it is an unprecedented moment in history because the danger that he poses.
We have the power to do something about it. Mike Pence must do his duty, invoke the 25th, and if he won't, we will move with urgency to do ours and impeach Donald Trump again.
So continuing this quest is not, as has been said so many times on the floor tonight, not what the country needs. Not what the country needs, particularly after the year the country has lived through. So I hope we will not vote for this, that this thing will go down, and I urge my colleague.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to oppose yet another Democrat witch hunt. We should take Democrats at their word when they say never let a good crisis go to waste.
Now, as earlier said, for his part, Vice President Mike Pence has signaled he's not open to using the 25th Amendment and said last night he and the president met after days of not speaking, and they reportedly agreed to work together for the remainder of their term. Today, President Trump said the 25th Amendment is no risk to him.
Before we begin, I'd like to say that free speech is under assault like never before. The 25th Amendment is of zero risk to me, but will come back to haunt Joe Biden and the Biden administration. As the expression goes, be careful what you wish for.
And if that's the case, House Democrats say they will now vote on impeachment. Meanwhile, the hunt for those who stormed the Capitol is also in full swing.
The significance? We're looking at significant felony cases tied to sedition and conspiracy. Just yesterday, our office organized a strike force of very senior national security prosecutors and public corruption prosecutors. Their only marching orders from me are to build seditious and conspiracy charges related to the most heinous acts that occurred in the Capitol.
This is a 24/7, full-bore, extensive operation into what happened that day. We cannot do our job without the help of the American people. Since our call for tips, videos, and pictures, we have received more than 100,000 pieces of digital media, which is absolutely fantastic. So even, like I've said before, so even if you've left D.C., agents from our local field offices will be knocking on your door if we find out that you were part of the criminal activity at the Capitol.
In other news, Google-owned YouTube on Tuesday temporarily suspended President Donald Trump's channel and removed a video for violating its policy against inciting violence, joining other social media platforms in banning his accounts after last week's Capitol riot. Trump's access to the social media platforms he has used as a megaphone during his presidency has been largely cut off since a violent mob of his supporters stormed the Capitol in Washington, D.C. last week. Operators say the embittered leader could use his accounts to foment more unrest in the run-up to President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration. The channel is now temporarily prevented from uploading new content for a minimum of 7 days, the statement read. The video sharing platform also said it will be indefinitely disabling comments on Trump's channel because of safety concerns. Facebook last week suspended Trump's Facebook or his account and Instagram accounts following the violent invasion of the U.S. Capitol, which temporarily disrupted the certification of Biden's election victory. Twitter went a step further by deleting Trump's account, depriving him of his favorite platform. The company also deleted more than 70,000 accounts linked to the bizarre QAnon conspiracy theory, which claims without any evidence that Trump is waging a secret war against a global cabal of Satanist liberals. Trump also was hit with suspensions by services like Snapchat and Twitch. The president's YouTube account has amassed 2.77 million subscribers.
And Ireland is to require all arrivals to show their negative coronavirus test results. Arian Celestino reports.
Hi, Alma, and yes, Ireland said Tuesday that from Saturday, all arriving travelers will have to show a negative coronavirus test, as the country's infection rate is now the highest in the world. in the face such blanket restrictions, the Irish government said in a statement that all travelers will need to show a negative test result. Reporting from the United Kingdom, I am Ariane Celestino, and we live in interesting times.
Indonesian President Joko Widodo received the country's first COVID-19 jab Wednesday as the sprawling archipelago of nearly 270 million kicked off a mass vaccination drive to clamp down on soaring case rates. The 59-year-old leader, better known as Jokowi, was inoculated on live television at the State Palace in Jakarta, along with his health minister and several senior officials, as well as business and religious leaders. Domestic regulators had this week approved the CoronaVac shot produced by Sinovac, announcing that its efficacy stood at 65.3%, according to tests performed in Indonesia. Health workers and other at-risk groups will get priority under an ambitious plan to inoculate nearly 182 million people over the next 15 months. The Southeast Asian nation has also signed deals for nearly 330 million vaccine doses from a string of pharmaceutical companies, including AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and Chinese suppliers such as Sinopharm. Indonesia has reported nearly 850,000 COVID-19 cases and close to 25,000 deaths. But low testing rates mean the public health crisis is believed to be much bigger than the figures suggest.
Closed shops and mostly empty streets were found all over Kuala Lumpur today as Malaysia started a strict partial lockdown to curb the spread of a COVID-19 virus wave that officials said could overwhelm the country's healthcare system. Take a look. A 2-week partial lockdown will be imposed in the worst-hit parts of the country from Wednesday, with all non-essential businesses to be closed. The emergency could be lifted earlier if the rate of infection slows, according to the palace. Malaysia kept the virus in check for much of last year with a tough lockdown, but once curbs were eased, cases accelerated dramatically. The Southeast Asian nation has reported more than 141,000 virus cases and 599 deaths, recording thousands of new infections every day. The Kuala Lumpur stock market slid heavily after the state of emergency was announced, but clawed back ground to end the day, are down 0.32%.
In other news, the coronavirus mutation first found in Britain has now spread to 50 territories, according to the World Health Organization, while a similar South African identified strain has now been found in 20. The UN body also noted a third new coronavirus variant of concern found in Japan may impact upon immune response and needs further investigation. The more the SARS-CoV-2 virus spreads, the more opportunities it has to change. High levels of transmission mean that we should expect more variants to emerge, said the WHO. Test results showed the age and sex distribution was similar to that of circulating variants, while contact tracing data revealed higher transmissibility or secondary attack rates, where the index case has the variant strain. The South African identified variant 501YV2, first reported on December 18, has now been detected in 20 countries, territories, and areas.
Meanwhile, Japan expanded a coronavirus state of emergency today to 7 more regions, and that includes Osaka and Kyoto, and tightened border restrictions as infections surge nationwide. The expansion means that from Thursday, 11 of the country's 47 prefectures will be under the state of emergency, accounting for about 60% of its GDP. While the country's outbreak remains comparatively small, with only around 4,100 deaths overall, there has been a sharp spike in cases this winter, and medics say hospitals are under heavy strain in the worst affected areas. The month-long state of emergency was implemented in the greater Tokyo area last week. It asks restaurants and bars to close by 8 p.m., with residents urged to avoid unnecessary outings and working from home strongly encouraged. Although, unlike most places in the world, the law does not currently allow authorities to enforce these requests, the government is planning legislation to fine businesses that don't comply. The areas affected range from central Aichi, an industrial and commercial hub, to Fukuoka in the southwest, and Osaka, which has reported record new cases in recent days, along with neighboring Kyoto and Hyogo prefectures. The emergency declaration will last until February 7 for all regions covered. The Prime Minister also announced Wednesday that the government would further tighten entry restrictions, which already barred the entry of almost all foreign visitors. The government will now suspend a program allowing business visits from 11 countries and regions, all but ending the entry of foreigners who are not existing residents. And it comes just over 6 months before the virus-postponed Tokyo Olympics are due to open. The Prime Minister has insisted he is committed to holding the Games this summer, despite polls showing widespread public opposition.
Meanwhile, the U.S. death toll from COVID-19 hit a new daily record of nearly 4,500, Johns Hopkins University said Tuesday evening. As the health crisis rages out of control in the U.S., this was the first time the toll in the country hardest hit by the pandemic surpassed 4,000 in 24 hours. The U.S. recorded more than 235,000 new cases of coronavirus infection and 4,470 deaths, according to the Johns Hopkins tally as of 8:30 p.m. or 01:30 GMT. Around 131,000 people are now hospitalized in the U.S. with COVID-19, said the COVID Tracking Project. Faced with these grim numbers and the presence of the new, more contagious COVID variant, authorities announced Tuesday that people wishing to fly to the U.S. must show proof of a negative COVID test prior to departure. The nation, with the world's largest economy, has now recorded 22.8 million coronavirus cases and more than 380,000 deaths since the start of the pandemic.
Jordan launched a COVID-19 vaccination campaign on Wednesday, beginning with jabs for healthcare workers, people with chronic illnesses, and those over the age of 60. The kingdom said on Saturday that it had granted an emergency license for the use of China's Sinopharm vaccine, the second vaccine it approved after the U.S.-German Pfizer-BioNTech. The first injections were given at hospitals and other healthcare facilities after the authorities designated 29 vaccination centers across Jordan, including 7 in the capital, Amman. Wael Hayajne, head of the Epidemics and Communicable Diseases Department at the Health Ministry, said Jordan was among the first 40 countries to be vaccinated against the novel coronavirus.
In other news, the elderly leader of a secretive religious sect at the center of South Korea's early coronavirus outbreak was not guilty of hindering the government's virus prevention efforts, a district court ruled Wednesday. The Shincheonji Church of Jesus, which is often condemned as a cult, was at the center of huge controversy early last year when it accounted for more than half of South Korea's coronavirus cases. Shincheonji's leader Lee, 89, was taken into custody in August and accused of giving health authorities inaccurate records of church gatherings and false lists of its members. Prosecutors last month requested a 5-year jail term, but the Suwon District Court cleared him of violating the infectious disease control law. The church has also apologized, while more than 3,500 of its members who survived the virus donated blood plasma to help treatment research. Lee was, however, convicted of embezzling more than 5.7 billion Korean won, or about $5.2 million, from Shincheonji and submitting false applications to hold religious events at public sports facilities.
A Chinese province of more than 37 million declared an emergency state on Wednesday to snuff out a handful of COVID-19 cases as the country moved decisively to contain the infections. More than 20 million are now under some form of lockdown in the country's northern regions. China's National Health Commission reported 115 new COVID-19 cases Wednesday, with 90 more cases in a cluster in Hebei province, which surrounds the capital Beijing. While numbers remain small compared with many other countries, China is trying to squash infections ahead of next month's Lunar New Year festival, when hundreds of millions of people are expected to be on the move across the country. There are fears those highly anticipated annual journeys will be curtailed if clusters continue.
Meanwhile, the novel coronavirus has killed at least 1,964,571 people since the outbreak emerged in China in December 2019, according to an AFP tally from official sources at 11 o'clock GMT on Wednesday. 91,691,962 cases of coronavirus have been registered. Of these, at least 56,306,300 are now considered recovered. Based on latest reports, the countries with the most new deaths were United States with 4,473, followed by Mexico with 1,314, and the United Kingdom with 1,243. The United States is the worst affected country with 380,821 deaths from 22,848,706 cases. At least 6,298,082 people have been declared recovered.
Vending machines are popping up on the campus of the University of California, San Diego, but instead of chocolate or soda, they contain free COVID-19 testing kits, and students are required to drop off their samples in nearby collection boxes within 72 hours, and they can receive their results on an app. Take a look.
Because it's closer to like where I live. Usually I would have to walk around like 15 minutes to get my test, and now it's just like 2-minute walk and then I could be done with it.
For the most part, I found the vending machine pretty useful. As I work, I have to test it like once a week, so it's pretty convenient. I just get tested right when I get out of the vending machine. So it takes like less of like a minute, if anything.
All right, we'll take a short break. Eagle News, we'll be right back.
This portion is brought to you by Canrev Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Services offered: supply and installation of elevators, escalators, air conditioners, ventilators, jet towel hand dryers, generators, access control system, factory automation and modernization. For more info, please contact Ami Kanke at 0915-263-7198 or 0998-900-3224.
Mula noon hanggang ngayon, gabay natin ang MTRCB ratings sa matalino at responsableng panonood. Sa tamang pagsunod sa MTRCB ratings, ginagawa nating ligtas at makabuluhan ang panonood ng bawat miyembro ng pamilyang Pilipino. Lipas man ang panahon, hanggang may pamilyang Pilipino, andyan ang MTRCB.
Welcome back to the news. Indonesian investigators said Wednesday they were hopeful of retrieving a crashed passenger jet's second black box as they seek to explain why the plane with 62 people aboard slammed into the sea minutes after takeoff. Divers just off the coast of the capital, Jakarta, hauled the jet's flight data recorder to the surface Tuesday, with the hunt now focused on finding its cockpit voice recorder on the wreckage-littered seabed. The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board said it was sending investigators to Jakarta along with personnel from Boeing, the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, and GE Aviation, which makes jet engines and other plane parts. More than 3,000 personnel are taking part in the recovery effort, assisted by dozens of boats and helicopters flying over small islands off the capital's coast and a remotely operated vehicle to assist the divers. 3 more victims have been identified by matching fingerprints on file to body parts retrieved from the murky depths, authorities said Wednesday, including a 50-year-old female passenger and a 38-year-old off-duty pilot. The first victim, a flight attendant, was also identified through his fingerprints. There were 10 children among the passengers on the half-full plane, which had experienced pilots at the controls as it left Jakarta bound for Pontianak City on Borneo Island on a 90-minute flight.
In other news, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un pledged to strengthen his country's nuclear arsenal as he delivered his closing address to a top ruling party meeting, according to state television, days before Joe Biden takes office as U.S. president. Take a look.
핵전쟁 억제력을 보다 강화하면서 최강의 군사력을 키우는 데 모든 것을 다해야 합니다.
탁월한 사상 이론적 예지와 세련된 용도력으로 우리 중앙위원회 제7기
호적이 격변기를 열어놓기 위한 당면 투쟁 계획과
비서인 조영원 동지, 조선노동당 중앙
In other news, an American woman was put to death by lethal injection Wednesday, becoming the first female to be executed by U.S. federal authorities in nearly 7 decades. Lisa Montgomery's execution came in the final days of the government of U.S. President Donald Trump, which pushed forward with her execution despite a legal battle that the Supreme Court ended with a ruling in the early hours of Wednesday. She was the 11th person to be put to death after the Trump administration successfully fought to resume federal executions in July following a 17-year hiatus. Her lawyer, Kelly Henry, in a scathing statement, called the decision the first for a female inmate since 1953, a vicious, unlawful, and unnecessary exercise of authoritarian power. Montgomery's defenders did not deny the seriousness of her crime. In 2004, she killed a pregnant 23-year-old to steal her baby. Unable to have a child, Montgomery carefully identified her victim, dog breeder Bobby Joe Stinnett, online. Under the guise of buying a puppy, Montgomery went to Stinnett's home where she strangled her and cut the baby from her body. The baby survived. In 2007, she was convicted of kidnapping, resulting in death, and handed a death sentence.
In southern Madagascar, the number of people going hungry has doubled compared with last year to almost 1.4 million Years of drought and a lack of jobs linked to COVID-19 restrictions are to blame, the World Food Program said. Lola Castro, WFP Regional Director for Southern Africa and Indian Ocean states, described famine-like conditions. December saw only 1 day of rain, Ms. Castro said, while thunderstorms have been blasting, destroying, and burying people's crops. Take a look.
We have seen the doubling of the numbers of food insecure between the data we had in July 2020 and November 2020. We moved from 700,000 people food insecure in the Grand South or Grand Sud of Madagascar to 1.3 million. What we are saying here is that the situation we are facing in southern Madagascar is not normal. It's very different to any normal year of crisis, and that we really need to act immediately. 300,000 people need at the moment safe living support. The result is a famine-like condition. 1.3 million people food insecure, 135,000 children severely or acutely malnourished, moderate acutely malnourished. People are eating whatever they can find, eating cactus mixed with mud, roots, whatever they can find, leaves, seeds, whatever is available. And the situation really is more dramatic because this year also the funds have not arrived enough on time to really be able to procure food or to provide cash transfers to these people.
The warning follows 3 consecutive years of failed rains coupled with a sharp recession triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic. WFP provides food assistance for almost 500,000 severely food insecure people in the 9 hardest hit districts in the island south, but intends to scale up aid to almost 900,000 in need. To do so, it's requesting $35 million, which will also provide emergency school meals for 150,000 children so that they can stay in class.
Meanwhile, Israeli raids targeting arms depot and military positions in eastern Syria killed at least 9 Syrian soldiers and 31 allied fighters in the deadliest such strike since 2018, a war monitor said Wednesday. The Israeli Air Force carried out more than 18 strikes against multiple targets in an area stretching from the eastern town of Deir ez-Zor to the Iraqi border, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said. The overnight raids killed 9 Syrian soldiers and 31 foreign militia fighters whose nationalities were not immediately known, the Britain-based monitoring group said. They wounded at least 37 others. Paramilitaries belonging to the Lebanese Hezbollah movement and the Fatimid Brigade, which is made up of pro-Iranian Afghan fighters, operate in the region, the observatory said. Israel routinely carries out raids in Syria, mostly against targets linked to Iran, in what it says is a bid to prevent its arch foe from consolidating a foothold on its northern border. Eagle News will be right back. Don't go away.
Ako po si Non.
Napagaling mo. You have a crystal powerful voice.
Ang galing. I really enjoyed your performance.
Isa na ang nakaabang sa January Finals. Sino naman kaya sa panibagong set of singers ang kakasa sa mas pinatinding hamon ng ating kompetisyon? Malalaman natin yan dito po sa biggest talent competition on Philippine TV and online. Ito po ang Tagig Senegalese Part 2 Singing Edition.
Equities mostly rose as investors struggled for traction in Asia on Wednesday following a tepid lead from Wall Street with hopes for another vast U.S. virus relief package offset by political upheaval in Washington and surging coronavirus cases. Risk sentiment was given a vital boost Tuesday when several top Federal Reserve officials played down the chances the central bank will begin winding down its bond-buying easy money policy anytime soon, despite expectations of higher inflation caused by a new stimulus. Democrats are pushing ahead with impeachment proceedings against President Donald Trump, who's accused of inciting last week's storming of the Capitol building, though there are concerns of further unrest leading up to Mr. Biden's January 20 inauguration. Trump warned of tremendous anger across the country. Now, most of Asia was on the up, though gains were limited as investors were reluctant to pile in owing to near-term worries about the virus surge, which has caused several countries to reimpose lockdowns for the next several weeks as they battle to roll out vaccines. Tokyo rose 1%, while Taipei and Bangkok added even more. Sydney, Seoul, Singapore, and Jakarta also posted gains, but Hong Kong, Shanghai, Mumbai, Wellington, and Manila fell. London opened barely moved, while Paris and Frankfurt were slightly lower.
Meanwhile, restaurants in Mexico City opened their doors despite orders from the regional government for non-essential businesses to close in an attempt to contain the spread of COVID-19, while other restaurants and non-essential business workers protest the measures.
Lo que pasa que no pudimos lograr un acuerdo, a pesar de que les dijimos que íbamos a abrir. No nos creyeron que estábamos dispuestos a abrir. Estamos tan desesperados que estamos abriendo, porque si no, la opción que nos dieron es la muerte.
Meanwhile, all air passengers bound for the United States will require a negative COVID-19 test within 3 days of their departure, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The policy will take effect on January 26 and expands on a previous testing rule that targeted Britain and came into effect in December following the emergence of a coronavirus variant believed to be more transmissible. Other variants of concern have also been reported in South Africa and Brazil. On Tuesday, Japan said it was working to isolate and analyze a variant detected in 4 passengers who arrived from Brazil. The CDC also recommends that travelers get tested again 3 to 5 days after their arrival and stay home for at least 7 days. The test must be for current infection, and passengers are required to provide written proof of its outcome to airlines before they are allowed to board. Some epidemiologists have warned it's likely that new, more transmissible variants are already establishing themselves in the United States, where more than 379,000 people have died from the disease and over 3,000 more are dying every day.
Footage from Sea Life Sydney Aquarium in Australia shows an adult male seahorse giving birth to dozens of babies as part of the aquarium's white seahorse breeding program aimed to repopulating the endangered ocean animal. Watch this.
We have had over 100 babies born over the last few months. So the first lot of babies were born in early November, and we will be expecting some more very soon. We have 3 males that are currently pregnant, will give birth within the next few weeks, and we're expecting more throughout the season until February or March. So we will be able to grow these seahorses until they're about 6 to 7 months old, which means they'll be about 5 or 6 centimeters in length. And that means they're big enough for us to tag and then release them out into the wild. So that way we can monitor them after they have been released, which means our divers will go out and check up on them regularly. The White Seahorse Breeding Program was launched because these white seahorses were listed as endangered. They were actually the second species of seahorse in the entire world to be listed as endangered. So us at Sea Life Sydney Aquarium, as well as our partners, the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries and the University of Technology Sydney.
Almost all species of lemur, the small saucer-eyed primates native to Madagascar, face extinction, according to an international conservation body on Thursday, adding to its growing list of animals and plants under threat. Of the 107 surviving lemur species on the island, some 103 are threatened, including 33 that are critically endangered, the last stop before extinct in the wild, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature said. The organization called for a fundamental reimagining of the way humanity interacts with the natural world in an update to its red list of threatened species. The United Nations Biodiversity Panel, IPBES, last year warned that up to 1 million species face the risk of extinction as a result of humanity's insatiable desire for land and materials. Lemurs, Madagascar's treasure, are among the many precious species unique to the Indian Ocean island. But the impoverished country is struggling to combat deforestation, poaching for food, and the illegal pet trade. More than 40% of Madagascar's original forest cover was lost between the 1950s and 2000.
Kevin Durant poured in 34 points and handed out 13 assists as the Brooklyn Nets rallied from an 18-point deficit to beat the Denver Nuggets 122-116 in the NBA on Tuesday. Durant added 9 rebounds and Bruce Brown chipped in 16 points in a clutch performance in place of absent Nets star Kyrie Irving. Brown's jump shot off a feed from Durant knotted the score at 113 with 2:16 to play. He followed with a floater that put the Nets ahead for good. Durant scored the Nets' next 6 points as Brooklyn put it away, denying the Nuggets a sweep on their 3-game road trip. Nikola Jokic had 23 points, 11 assists, and 8 rebounds for Denver, but they were outscored by the Nets 68-46 in the second half. It was a satisfying end to the day for Brooklyn, who were without Irving for a 4th straight game for what the team has called personal reasons.
And General Motors joins the race for flying cars, unveiling its concept for an autonomous air taxi at the 2021 Consumer Electronics Show. Take a look. Now, the U.S. auto giant offers few details, releasing only a video of the Cadillac brand electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, or eVTOL, on its digital exhibit page. Several aeronautics firms and startups have shown similar flying cars in recent years. Although there are no apparent plans for any immediate commercialization, featured was a single-seat aircraft capable of traveling autonomously up to 90 kilometers or 55 miles per hour from rooftop to rooftop. Propelled by 8 rotors using next-generation battery technology, the news came as GM unveiled a new Bright Drop brand for electric vans and made other announcements on its plans to ramp up electric-powered vehicles.
It will take for that to be a reality.
I don't know, years. You would need a pilot's license so we can drive.
Yeah,
through.
I was just thinking about that. How are you gonna make people drive when they're drunk? How's that gonna be? They can fall.
They cannot drive when they're drunk.
That's gonna be a lot of.
I can't wait to find out more tech gadgets from the CES, although it's only online, but you know.
Should be exciting.
Yeah.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I am CJ Hero. See you again tomorrow.
And at the end of the day, there remains so much more to be grateful for. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.